Are you looking for something special to remind you what a mystical experience prayer can be? Are you looking for something beautiful to hang in your car for protection? Try Prayers by the Bead. You'll find a variety of original, one-of-a-kind Anglican prayer beads, Lutheran, Methodist, Catholic prayer beads that are made to your specification using our materials or your materials made to order in just about any design that inspires you to get prayed right up.
Sarah has about over 100 in her inventory pre-made, and guys, yes, there's plenty of rosaries and designs for you, so to give to your father, for yourself, for your own prayer life.
We have a variety of exorcism medals, including the St. Benedict cross, beads, anything for your spiritual warfare needs. So, if you'd like some more information, find my page, Prayers by the Bead.
The real deals are on the air now. And now, live from the Swords of St. Michael Studios, it's The Real Deals, Kenneth and Bear Rose Deal.
Hi, folks. Welcome aboard. Here, let me grab your hand. Don't trip over that dock. Watch out that nail that's sticking up out of the floorboards. It's a little rickety. Oh, that board's cracked right there. Don't let your four... Don't fall. Okay, well, enough of that. You're on board, okay? It's a rough ride here onto the Deels ship, but welcome very much. My fans sent me a pair of gloves.
You're lucky.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, tonight's show is about something unusual, but not too unusual, just maybe in the title itself.
It's so common.
Yeah, and you call it the Afterlife Chronicles, which could be anything if you think about it. So let's do the usual with this is going to be basically going over all the things related to it, and somewhat of a, not a round table because it's just me and you. It'd be like not even a table. But we are going to discuss this, not just relay what we've learned to be, what the church considers the facts and relaying life experiences and so forth, but hoping to shed some light on this a bit more, the mystery, even of a bit of purgatory, unfinished business, and all these other things that kind of have to do with the ghost phenomenon, if that's what you call it. But here we are to talk about it. Thanks for showing up and watching us tonight. And you're ready to do the Latin version of the St. Michael?
Always.
Okay, here we go.
In nomine Patri et Filio et Spiritus Sanctus, sic et principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Amen. Sancta Michael, Arcangele, defende nos in prelio contra nequitiam et insidiis diaboli est presidium. Imperere Deus supplices te precamur tuque, princeps maletia celestis satana maliosque, spiritus malignos, qui ad perditionem pervegantur in mundo divina, in virtute detrude. Amen.
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 Yeah, I like that.
Hey, we got a couple birthdays this month. I have to shout out to Carolyn. She put up some goofy picture like it's some old lady's birthday. It was her birthday. So happy birthday, Carolyn. And, of course, Mary, one of our Franciscan sisters, it was her birthday, too. So happy birthday, you January babies, celebrating in the snow and all that good stuff. So welcome, everybody. It's so good to see you, Athena, Cecilia, and, oh, my gosh, we got Tony B, Tony C. I got to keep you guys separate. And Marie and Santo Miguel. It's so good to see everybody tonight. This can be a really, really sensitive and hot topic discussion for people because when our relatives die, we're quite attached to them, and we're quite attached to our, shall I say, our regular schedules and the regular things that people do in our lives. And that's everything from, maybe brushing our teeth to having a cigar at the same time every evening, or maybe on the weekends after we mow the grass. People are creatures of habit. So when we lose a loved one, we look at those habits that we miss the most, whether it was our father, our sister, our husband, our child. We look at those habits and we fondly recall how they comforted us. Because as humans, our security really exists almost in the repetitive sameness sometimes. Because things that are out of the ordinary and out of that sameness, they kind of scare us. And they make us wonder what's going on or what could be different. So as we talk tonight, we're going to talk about what people expect after somebody dies, what goes through people's minds after we lose a loved one, how easy it is to misinterpret certain signs after somebody dies. Hello, Jennifer. I see you waving hello from chat. Hi, Zulma. Hi, Daniel Covington. We're going to talk about some of these really sensitive issues with respect to the fact that it's very rare that somebody will have contact with a loved one after death. And it's more likely that, depending on the stage of grief and the allowance of, shall we say, preternatural interference, that it could be something malignant. So go ahead, Ken. I know we've got some great stories to share tonight. What?
Oh, first one's the photo meme of the week.
Oh, that's what you tell me all the time. Get a shampoo. But you usually don't have that cute of a mask.
At first at glance, it's like the guy's behind him, obviously, his nose is in his hair. Hey, what kind of shampoo are you using? Oh, boy, I like it when they make fun of some of the horror movies, but sometimes it would be in bad taste, and that's not what we're about. We keep it light, and a sense of humor is very important, that we can get people to laugh that otherwise would be frightened 24/7 and having nervous breakdowns. And do you remember Gabriel Amorth at the end of that movie that we watched, The Devil and Father Amorth? And he actually stuck the tongue out at the cameraman getting on the elevator with his little walker. I heard he always had a sense of humor, and those are definitely needed in this world. Yes, as we move forward and along, one of the things I think, and I'm going to hold these books up, and they're going to be backwards because of the camera's configuration.
So you got to, like, what? Turn them upside down? Oh, no. You got to, like, do the mirror trick, you know? You want me to show you how to do the mirror trick? Girls know how to do mirror tricks.
Gosh. Yeah, it's because I switched my orientation on there, and suddenly all the text is wrong. We might correct that with another optical at some point.
Yeah, who's going to be able to read that?
These are Purgatory books.
They have to play the video in the mirror, right?
I got at least 3 of them.
Around.
And I want to tell you something about Purgatory. Is when you read through these books, you don't read about let's say the good experiences, so to speak. And these are supposed to be says it's from the saints, as told by the saints. This one's Father Faber, and another one says it's told by the saints. And the problem there is it really does seem like the church didn't talk about the lighter side of purgatory.
True.
Oh, your son committed suicide. He might be in purgatory. Pray for his soul. You know, the promise and the hope and the mercy, the ultimate justice and mercy that comes from God on us. Instead of like, oh, yeah, you told a dirty joke, you're going to purgatory for 1,000 years. They turn it into like a thing that's supposed to threaten you because they don't want you to think you have a safety net with purgatory. You're going to fall short if you're not threatening your kids with hell, and you still threaten them with purgatory, right there. Did your grandmother threaten you with purgatory when you were younger? Your grandma was sweet, and I never met her.
No, I didn't get told I was going to purgatory. I was told I was going to hell. I was a bad kid. I'm sorry, Jesus, but yeah. Oh my gosh!
But that's one of the
truths. I was a trying child, to say the least.
You ever dip the whole child in the inkwell instead of just dipping the pigtails in?
Oh, no. They were tossing the whole baby in the oven with me.
All right. Don't make people the wrong idea.
Yes, the favorite threat of my childhood is funny. I'm locking you in a convent. And I was like, please? My mom could not do that.
You didn't run away and join a convent? Remember, that's kind of a threat. Like, I'm going to run away and join a convent.
No, I got threatened to be sent to a convent.
Oh, it would just be temporarily?
No.
How do you solve a problem like Maria?
Worse.
Oh my gosh! But I think it's a necessary thing that the church did that because you don't want to give people too much of a safety net, and they fall short of purgatory too because they think, I'll just go to purgatory, I'll be fine, because no one knows what it's like there.
Exactly.
So these books try to tell you what it's like there when you're in purgatory for whatever reason, but they forget the good stuff because it was on purpose, and I'm sure they filtered it out before they published the original books, just so you didn't think too much about how merciful God is. Hey, I'll go to purgatory, I'll hang out with my friends there, like the like it's a place of party until you get to heaven, or it's the holdover at the airport, or at the bread line, waiting for your handout. But near-death experiences and all of this stuff all goes together. And unfortunately, Farah, you had, if you don't mind bringing this up, we like to do a little bit of on-the-fly stuff. You drowned twice. Was one experience different than the other? Did you see dead relatives?
It's always nice if you discuss this with me before bringing it, just dropping it in my lap.
People love the spontaneity. You told him before. Come on, did you?
Hi, Lori.
Okay, I guess not.
What was it that you wanted to know about drowning? It's so much fun to be smothered.
What was your experience after you drowned that was supernatural or something like heavenly or whatever? And was it the same on both times?
No.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that have to do with the
Afterlife?
The Afterlife Chronicles.
That's an afterlife
I didn't
experience.
get to die. That was the bummer.
I call it near-death experiences.
That's an NDE, different story, different topic.
Ah, okay. Well, I had it here in the list as that's relevant too because.
Well, I think the thing is that it would be relevant if I got to die, which I was completely happy dead, and I was so thrilled to be there.
Well, you did die, didn't you?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But I had to come back, and that was the bummer. Is that I was not amused. I had to come back. I was so sad. I was literally sobbing. And I'm sure everybody knows when you have a horrible dream and you're sobbing yourself and your chest hurts so bad it feels like it's going to split because it's so painful. And that's how you wake up spitting water out of your lungs. It's pretty awful.
Wow.
Yeah. I never got to die and stay dead. I got to die and come back. So it doesn't really have anything to do with ghosts, so honey.
Yeah.
Or contact with the dead. Unless, of course, you call living with me contact with the dead.
Oh, it's just the title
nice
that you chose, like the afterlife. I don't really think of the afterlife like ghost stories or, purgatory so much, but a little bit of everything. Anything to do with if you die or near death, and you have some experience of the afterlife, which is what happens. So we'll move along on a day that you have that pre-canned and prepared.
It's not even so much prepared. It's just I don't associate what we're talking about tonight with me, losing my breath and losing air and being tossed out into the ocean and dying with stories that real people have about their loved ones and about demonic entities that pretend to be loved ones. I've never come back and haunted you as a demon, have I, honey?
That's it.
Try me, sweetie. Keep trying me.
Still alive in this world. The notion of unfinished business came from the movie Casper, and that was a pretty good movie for its time. I went and seen it at the theater twice, because we don't get the good movies very often on that kind of unusual topics. But the point is that I was a fan of Casper, a cartoon, when I was a kid. And the Ghostly Trio, I particularly like Spooky because he was a practical joker. He was supposed to be like an uncle, like another uncle. And we didn't see him in that episode. But unfinished business is actually correlating with the purgatory spirits, which go, not only to Shakespeare, of course, but is in Maccabees, 1 that is talk about prayers for the dead. So we know it's a very old notion. The Catholic Church revisited the notion after being challenged by Luther and people who were following Luther at the Council of Trent, and they readdressed. They didn't create. That's the idea. They readdressed, because of the challenge, what they believed about purgatory and other topics that were also addressed. But no new doctrine came from this Council of Trent. And so this was not long after the Protestant Reformation started to take its shape. Some people followed that book, the Council of Trent, as the catechism to follow. Like, that's the one that seems to be flawless. The people are more traditional. So sometimes you like to go in there and check out that old catechism. I don't even think we have that copy here. Do you remember seeing one in Dad's collection?
No, I don't.
The Council of Trent specifically? That might be a good one to have, and you can look in there and think, hey, is this the way they used to teach it? Pretty much for the most part. They reworded some of it, maybe to make it more simplistic. There's no more yais and yees. And what's the way they talk? Thou's, these, thou, these, ye. And, because they were still talking like that when they did the English Bibles and stuff. And maybe the jargon, so to speak, that basically saying the same thing just got simplified. I don't know. But Ghost Unfinished Business, I think, fits very much because purgatory is unfinished business. Sometimes we call it community service.
Yes.
Because if you go before an earthly judge and you broke the law, is he going to say you go free without paying any kind of penalty whatsoever? No fine? No community service jail time or anything like that? Weekend jails for a month? Or does he say you go straight to hell, which is like the day is on earth? Death row. No, he doesn't. There's variations or shades of gray in God's mercy. You know why? Because we're all shades of gray. We vary from times of birth to times of the end of our life. We may be more into black by the time we're near death, aren't? Or in your case, you were saying you're a naughty child, so at least people perceived you to be as such. Some people can be mean. That you started in the black and then you ended up in the white, and
basically,
yeah. And that's why purgatory varies too. Sometimes people just aren't bad enough to go to hell, and they're not prepared for heaven. And that's what we call it. And don't let the word purgatory throw you just because Catholics have a name for something that's in existence. It's a phase of existence, and it's not necessarily a place.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know what, people, if you're listening and you don't believe in purgatory, don't be put off because we're using words that you're just like, well, maybe I don't agree with it. That's a problem with our society today, is that there's so many people have so many disagreements and misunderstandings, and we're not listening to each other, okay? We're not trying to convince you of what we believe. We're trying to share with you our experiences. And if you have different opinions, we'd love to hear it. Comment on our videos. Engage us in conversation. That is our Franciscan spirituality, to open dialogue, okay? We want everybody coming home with us, not just the goody two-shoes. I'm far from it.
It'd be boring. No, I'm just kidding. We're all everybody's a little different too. Some people find that they find it better to offer prayers and penance. And that's
very true.
And you'll find out the orders, like Franciscan, Benedictine, Dominican. And just we're just talking about, not only the third order, but say if you're going to become a monk, you'll find that some are more prayerful and others are more about acts, doing acts of charity, and then they'll send them into town and go to nursing homes and those kind of things. Not that they all don't do some of that in general, but it's like whichever one's your fancy. Everybody's a little bit different. Some people consider themselves a prayer warrior, and they love that, and they really lock into the hours of prayers. And just a regular person goes through life, you're going to pick one of those, and whatever suits you. I can go to Mass more often when I'm not sick in the winter, because of our schedule, and that's a convenience that I'm blessed to have. I can't go sit in the Blessed Sacrament like I did at some point for a couple hours a day when it was necessary to get through some rough times 10 years ago, for example. But the fact is that we can customize ourselves. So back to the main topic at hand. So this is relevant to the unfinished business. What if the unfinished business is that you have to learn? Like when the suicides go to purgatory, they're going to have to learn to appreciate their life. And the reason I say that is because we know of a lot of cases, and I'll plug this book in a minute, that reveal that you'll go to purgatory in some cases, as we know, from various sources, which we won't get into now. And the person is experiencing their day of death, maybe a few days before or whatever, and re-experience it. And then people actually see them, kind of like that Weird House movie with William Cott.
Oh, yeah.
He sees his grandmother commit suicide before she warns him about the house. But in real life, they've seen him. They call him doomed to repeat. They used to talk about it all the way back in the Shakespeare times. They are doomed to walk the earth. They're doomed to repeat their actions. Yeah. Sometimes it's murder, and sometimes it was suicide, murder of themselves. So it's kind of like the replay scenario is part of their community service.
It is.
What do you think about that kind of stuff in this day and age, people?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
We have a book here, and some people might criticize me. I've a friend, you can't really see it, Rosemary Ellen Guiley. I don't agree on her views on a lot of stuff, and when she wrote this book, Ghosts and Spirits, I read the original copy in the 80s, and it's a compilation of ghost stories, unbiased, unswitched, unaltered. So she wrote them exactly as they were told. And she is a great historian, and so this book is particularly good. I read it cover to cover in the 80s, early 80s probably, about 84. And there was a different version. It had a blue cover on the side.
Yes.
There's a creepy picture on it. But what happened there is I realized there was a pattern to all these ghost stories, and it made me understand purgatory more. So I can almost recommend this on this particular book, Ghosts and Spirits Encyclopedia, because you'll really understand the phenomenon, that people call ghosts, why they're here, what kind of scenario. How about the one I've told many times of the maid. The maid in one of the Scotland castles, I think it was, around that area in the UK. And she was seen walking around the castle, dusting the place every day. Well, was that her purgatory? Well, legend says that she stole from the master. And she may have been executed. Maybe she's working community service because she stole and she got executed for it. But I hope I didn't confuse this with another story similar, but she actually ascends a flight of stairs where the upper part doesn't exist anymore, so she disappears through the ceiling. Isn't that strange and unusual? Now, people call this repeating apparitions, whatever the Ghostbusters will call it or something.
Where does the concept purgatory come from, sweetie? People in the chat room would like to know, where's that concept come from? Because in the King James Bible, the word purgatory is not in there.
They call it Hades. Hades is actually what they teach you in the Catechism, that Gehenna is hell and Hades is purgatory. It's a temporary hell. And that's a part of purgatory, the purging, and so forth. So you might find it under the references to Hades in there, in those Bibles. But in Maccabees 1 and 2, there are books in there that were rejected by, starting with Martin Luther in the 1500s, after his Reformation, when he basically wrote another version of the Bible in German and tailored it a bit, because it's been known since the New King James Version was put out, and they were supposed to fix the 20,000 errors. You remember hearing about that. And some people don't like it because they did make changes based on the ancient Greek text that they had copies of. So they went in there and they made a good go of it. And some of the text was changed in there, and it changed some of the ideas, such as faith alone. What's it called? Solified, I think? Solified?
Sola fide.
Yeah, there you go. See my wife with the Latin. And it just kind of goes to show, when Martin Luther did that, for some reason he emphasized the word alone in Romans 3:28, which is where it's at.
Yes.
And you'll notice that they de-emphasized that word, and they made it kind of like the old Bibles used to be, and where it just says faith apart from works. It doesn't mean alone, like alone, which is a very different thing. He basically inserted alone in there. But anyway, going beyond that, so that's the King James Version. There's a lot of things that aren't going to be in there because the original Nicaea compilation, compiled by the Emperor Constantine, who was the commissioner of this, just as King James was, that the Council of Nicaea met for 6 months. And some people say that the Book of Enoch and stuff was there, but there's no proof and that it was even looked at.
None whatsoever.
Yeah. So they couldn't agree on some books, and they did clearly leave them out. And I bet you remember, I don't know, years ago we were talking about this, Fair, which books possibly might have been let out because they do seem authentic, and they haven't revisited that idea ever since. But they didn't add any new books in there that weren't already accepted. And Doctrine Maccabees came from the Jews, but they didn't like it because it was a book written in ancient Greek, and they were very, we'll just say, picky, because they weren't in the language of Hebrew. And or what would that be? Arabic? Ancient Arabic?
Aramaic.
Aramaic. Thank you very much. So if you look in there in Maccabees 1 and 2, it talks about praying for the dead. Therefore, it's a holy and thought to give prayers for the dead. So that's just giving the end of the caption.
Well, get this. Santos had a great explanation of purgatory. He says, hey, listen, folks, I got a stick, and I bust your car window out. And I say, I'm sorry. And purgatory is, that's nice. The window still has to be replaced.
That's right, restitution.
That's it's justice. It's all about justice.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what God is. God is justice.
Yeah,
although, I know, that was such an excellent explanation. But what purgatory is, though, and what our prayers do, is that God doesn't always demand justice from the person wielding the stick. The person that loves the person wielding the stick can take care of the car window. That's the beauty of the faith, is that justice can be paid in other ways.
Yeah, that's the thing about justice and mercy. Mercy is when justice doesn't line up, that he has every right to execute you, for example. If you looked at some old case, I know they're a lot lenient, that's mercy. But when it's justice, you're actually talking about something that evens the score. But mercy is when they go beyond that. They go beyond their set laws of the king. And then there's mercy extended. It always means that. I don't know why they call hospitals mercy. They get anything but mercy there. It's like a convenience store. It's one of those oxymorons. How convenient is those prices? You know, I need a can of oil and it costs $5.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! No, good questions, and we have the chat rolling, as you can see. So keep up pumping them through. This in these shows, unusual formats. We will continue to always monitor and repeat the questions that you have, as long as they are not inadequate, or what would this say? Not inadequate, inappropriate, I guess is the word, isn't it, Pharaoh?
Kind of, sort of.
But I think that's a good question, though, about that. But purgatory is just a word, and I always said that. Catholics call it purgatory. I call it a long name.
I don't want people that are, inquiring into the salvation through Christ or into Christianity to get hung up on the word purgatory. Purgatory is another word for justice. It is the scales are balanced, clean slate. So basically, don't go busting out your neighbor's car windows, and you won't have a problem,
Test
will
the
you?
theory.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that form, we don't know God's justice. He's so just.
No, exactly. I mean, we've got a lot to look at. So onward and upward with our Afterlife Chronicles, as Ken was talking about. We have a variety of different situations that are or that can be encountered after a loved one dies. And depending on the attachments of each one of us to that loved one, it can be different from everyone that encounters that person that actually passed away.
That's for sure. And I think this is relevant to some questions that we receive lately, too. And I think just people just want to know, because a lot of people lose loved ones, obviously, and they might experience a dream or something, right, Farrah? That's just,
yes.
And then they have questions like, what is this relevance to this? Why are they here? Or any number of questions. One of the things that was kind of disturbing, too, and it became a demonic case, is a famous case called, I believe it was the Lindy Street Poltergeist case, chronicled by Mr. Hall. I can't remember his first name. I always got him mixed up with the other guy named Rob. And to give you real quick, the woman basically took her grief the wrong direction. She made an altar representing her dead son.
Oh, yeah.
Chipped a piece of tombstone off. Yeah, and then she basically did probably what, the curious...
a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm. You cross that line out of curiosity, you invite an evil spirit in, and it was a noisy poltergeist, ruckus kind of house that you don't hear about anymore since Fox Sisters. It's not as common, it's rare. But I think that she probably got into one of those conversations where...
Yes.
Rap once for yes, twice for no, if this is my little boy.
And that is so easy for a lot of people to think, from everything they hear on TV, everything their friends are discussing, well, why don't you ask it to talk to you? Why don't you ask it to leave you a message? Yeah. Why don't you see maybe your mom wants to share her favorite grandma's recipe? That's freaking what's wrong with you people?
I don't doubt that.
Talking to dead things.
Yeah, I like whoever the steak and shake recipe for chili, wherever he is or she is, I might get a Ouija board and see if I can find out what it is. No, just kidding. Relax. I like steak and shake chili, and I'd like to be able to make it someday. I don't know what they got in there, but it's really good. It's my favorite chili. And then my wife's is close second. I have a childhood memory of that when my grandma and grandpa came over. They took me there for my birthday, so I'm a little biased on that. But yeah, it can go the wrong way definitely if you don't recognize that a demon can pretend to be your dead relative.
Oh, yeah, and Tony brings up a really good point, which I'd like to address that right away. Now, this is Tony B, not Tony C, because we've got a Tony B and a Tony C in chat tonight, okay? So Tony B says, what about Saul using the Witch of Endor to conjure up Samuel? Was it really Samuel? You want to address that? I'd love to.
Well, that's one of those roundtable
That's
ones.
really,
that
really
we heard
good.
two schools of thoughts on that. That it wasn't actually Samuel, but yeah, and don't. My belief always was that it was Samuel, and somehow or another God allowed Samuel to appear, so the witch didn't actually conjure. But Samuel, being a prophet, and obviously what we know today as a saint, had the ability to be able to say, hey, you're doing this wrong, and you just cursed yourself. Because he'd already scolded him in life and told him he lost his kingship. So that was his one last thing. What did Saul do after that, when he's already pretty much doomed to save his soul before he died because he pretty much screwed up everything he ever had in life from his fear and whatever. But I don't know. I guess the jury's kind of out. We don't see that angels from heaven pretend to be known human spirits. Maybe strangers, like the stranger that pushed you out of the way at a bus. You turn around and thank him.
Yeah.
He disappeared, but you didn't recognize him. He just looked like a hobo or...
Hello. Let's go back to Demonology 101. Where's the demonic footprint? If we're talking about the whole little Saul story, kids, I'm just going to do like a 1, 2, 3, just like a, 1, 2, 3 time out here, kids. Okay, number 1. Now, when you're dealing with a supernatural entity, what is the number 1 thing you can expect? What? Lies, deceit, confusion, and chaos, okay? Yeah. So when the king lied to the witch of Endor because he was so desperate to wake the prophet from his grave, number 1, he lied. What could he expect? Especially from a witch. He could expect nothing but what? Demonic intervention. Number 2, the witch didn't know, and at that time, for whatever reason, she was allowed to summon the dead soul of Samuel. Now, was that really Samuel? Okay, Demonology 102. When a demon is talked to or summoned, what can we expect? Lies and chaos, right? So, what happened when he was confronted and asked for help? Did he say, you're going to get the crown, you're going to get the harem, you're going to be fine, you're going to get fat and happy and have grandkids? No, he said, excuse me, what are you doing bothering my rest? Who are you? And that's when the witch of Endor knew the gig was up. She'd been lied to. So if it was really a demon, don't you think it would have been happy to see the king? Okay, number 3.
All right, Samuel was mad at him when he died.
He was mad. He was like, excuse me. And that was truly, before Christ came, that was the fate of souls. They slept.
Yeah.
They slept in watchful wait of the Messiah.
That's right. I said heaven. I was incorrect on that.
And they basically slept.
Limbo.
They waited.
Into the bosom of Abraham,
so,
they call it, yeah.
It was really kind of sad because here the prophet waiting for the Messiah, or waiting to be said, knock, 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 you can wake up, the Messiah's here. And who is it? It's the king that wants his help again. So number 3 is there is no demonic footprint. Chances are we can take the Bible at face value and believe that, yes, the prophet was woken. He was irritated. And sadly, Saul got his just desserts and lost everything. And every single ability of any of his family members to have any part of the crown.
Wow.
Yeah, especially after he deceived David. That was pretty sad. So
that was a great point. You just said something that I didn't even think about until now.
It's all demonic footprints. You just got to follow the little
cockroaches. The Bible clearly said it was Saul. She raised, so it didn't say a spirit representing, a demon representing or appearing as Saul. The Bible is very exact on that, on these things. I don't know. I guess what's the one called? The Latin version? It's in the back of the Orthodox. The Supratra? No, you know the names. I'm bad with that. Always been bad with names, folks. Forgive me. What's your name again, Fred? Oh,
exactly.
No, Barney.
Flintstone.
Don't forget. Get the men mixed up. No, it's the Greek text that's that precedes, of course. It's the Old Testament, and they had that, or they have another one, and I can't remember the names. I had this problem actually in the Catechism, and I had a problem with psychology, not electronics for some reason, but with names, with labels. I knew exactly what the definition is in great detail, understood fully, but I'm always going to have that. And I'm older. I got no excuse anymore.
That's
like,
true.
it's always been that way. No, can't
Well,
say it.
and this is something real food for thought. A lot of Christians, I'm sure, grapple with. I'm sure not just you, Cheryl. Cheryl poses, what if God does not allow spirits that are currently in purgatory working out justice to communicate with any of us?
Yeah, they're not
and
supposed to.
every single image of who we think our dead ones are demons. What if? You want to answer that?
I remember one of the people doing the work that we're doing now. He put up something that Father Fortea said. He says that they're not allowed to speak and all that stuff, but we found that was different. But they're not allowed to keep carrying a message, pray for me over and over and over again. So we find out on a large part of percentage, except on rare occasions, they're not allowed to communicate. They're not allowed to speak except by the express written consent, literally, that God, under special circumstances, let's say you're praying for them and they need you just say 3 masses, and that's what your desire is, to get them out of purgatory. And they did this with Padre Pio. One of his fellow monks was seen in the chapel, it's the old story. And he said, "You there? Why are you here?" People understood that Padre Pio knew it was a spirit, and he didn't recognize him as a monk. You know how it is. You say the same faces every day. So he basically was addressed by the spirit who told him verbally that you say 3 masses, and I'll be able to move on to heaven or whatever his phase of existence was next. Because sometimes you might go through your, we'll just say, school of unfinished business or community service, and maybe you might get your purge last, like when you're an astronaut coming in from the hostile Mars atmosphere, and you're getting purged so you can go back in and hang out with the others inside the capsule. It's like that a little bit, isn't it?
I want to address this question from Cheryl, too, because as we talk about, the Afterlife Chronicles here, I think it's important to note that the big blessing, and this isn't a judgment or, a delineation of, all Christian denominations, because basically, if you've been baptized, sorry, but you're Catholic too. So that body of believers, all right, we're Catholic by our baptism. Now let's take it from here. In matters of faith and in matters of our deceased, we have to look at the order according to Thomas Aquinas, according to some of our doctors of the church, which comes to us through what? Tradition, the magisterium, the tradition being handed, oral, written, from the bishops, the pastors, the priests, the cardinals, popes, etc. Plus we have the magisterium, which is the active, governing, wise body that looks at the entire field of evidence, and it basically sieves everything from evidence to hyperbole to hysteria to theology, and putting it through that sieve takes it to a different level for us by making it understandable and explaining it to us, such as so many incidents that we've had. I mean, let's just take, Ken and I, it was so funny, we were listening to something, and I mean, this totally goes to the Dead Chronicles here. When we talk about, a lot of Christians don't understand relics. Okay, what are relics? A relic is usually termed for, like, this piece of clothing. If I was Padre Pio, a piece of clothing touched my body, that would be considered a relic. What was the first relic used? You look into the Bible, and you see what? Pieces of Christ's robe were grabbed, and a woman was healed. What happened? What happened with Paul? Pieces of his robe was taken and laid on people, and they were raised from the dead, and they were healed. All right? So that's a relic. So this, I'm leading up to the answer here, folks, of what I'm talking about as far as the dead being allowed to appear to people. So we have this instance of people, whether they are alive or they are dead, if they are in a holy place and if they are a state of grace and they are observant and they pray and they devote their lives to God, there is a level of holiness about them. Now, as Pio could bilocate, he is the most recent one from the 1960s that is, shall we say, venerated. He's not worshipped, he's not adored, but people are in awe. They are they want to follow the steps that he followed to Christ. Now, when you go further back and you say, well, we're talking about the dead here, and we're talking about the dead appearing, how do we know that they're not demons? Once again, demonic footprints. Ken and I have both been through this most of our lives. When you're looking at an image of someone that's recently deceased or been deceased a long time ago, what is the fruits of that field? And if you go back to the Old Testament, the New Testament, everything is judged by the results of that seed that was planted. The parable of the tares, the parable of the sower. You have to look at the person that appeared. What was the fruit? Okay, what sprouted? Now, we just had Zulma share something absolutely wonderful. Sadly, I'm sorry to hear that her dear sweet father passed away a year ago. She was crushed. I remember seeing her post. She was heartbroken. She was forlorn. And she said she had a beautiful dream of him. And he was okay. Mm-hmm. And it comforted her so much that what was the fruit of that experience? She didn't cry as much. She didn't worry as much, and she didn't hurt as much. So when you look at these sightings that people have of their loved ones and their deceased ones, and you want to say, well, geez, that's probably a demon. No, all ghosts are not demons. Look at the fruits. Look at the direct result. Look at how people are affected all around them. And then come up with something that is, shall we say, appropriate to faith, hope, and charity. And if somebody has that, don't judge. Let them have their faith.
Yeah, and when it's a one-time thing, because demons will be persistent. They don't take no for an answer to some degree. And that's because the Spirit is actually giving you a final message before they go into heaven for your sake, to ease your mind or whatever God allows. That's a one-time thing. They're not going to come back every night and say, hey, how's the wife and kids? That's when it's a demon. A demon's always wanting to start a relationship between you and whatever spirit.
And an abusive relationship at that.
Yeah, it's got an undoing factor in there. You know the story about Simon at the presentation? He's the one who basically revealed to the Blessed Mother about the darker side of what was going to happen to Jesus, and that was heart-crushing. But you know that Simon was on his way out. But he was told by a kind of a prophecy dream or something that he would be able to hold in his arms the Savior, the Messiah. And he was just so thank you. I got to hold him. Even if he was in heaven, he would long to yearn to have the experience of actually being able to be on this earth, like the saints had said, and being able to hold the baby Jesus in his arms. And God gave him that. And he died shortly after that, is what the theologians and so forth go on that. But what happens if you are a grandmother and you're watching your daughter have her first child, and she's making little booties and all this cute stuff, and she's so looking forward to it, and she's like prepared a room just for the baby to come over and visit her, and then she dies before that happens.
Oh gosh, that would be so heartbreaking.
I know. Well, the story is that the mother basically came in one night when the child was about, I might have been a year old, and she heard the child laughing in the middle of the night or whatever it was. It was like 9 o'clock or something. Don't remember that detail. And it was just giggling, and smiling, probably. I think she saw that when she came in. She saw the child looking up and looked up, and she saw her grandmother, like an apparition, standing there, smiling and looking at them.
Yeah.
I'm losing my voice. Looking down at the baby. This is a very good, heartwarming story. God, for some reason, allowed her to be able to witness the grandchild looking up and and experiencing that. I think that's incredible. And they never saw it again. But see, that's not what demons do. Demons be like, I'm going to come back tomorrow night, and maybe I'll get her to actually ask me a question. So you can know them by their fruits. It's so right. That narrows it down, Farah. Yes, and that's what we see in the haunting scenario of human ghosts anyway, when they are. And it is rare. It is. We see demons in everything because they're in everything. Addiction and, and whatever it is, alcoholism or something, and one way or another, they're just not manifested. So we expect them to try to pull something like that. But then when we see these wonderful stories like that, we know, hey, there's scenarios where God is so merciful that he allowed, this grandmother not to hold the baby, like with when Simon was allowed to live longer, but to actually make eye contact and interaction. The baby didn't know the difference. It was smiling. It's so wonderful. Some of these stories, they're not scary or anything, But, we don't suspect it to be a ghost. It's so rare. It is. People used to act like the demons was rare. Remember that? Mm-hmm. What was that exactly? They thought everything was ghosts. I know, so did I. I kept looking up ghost stuff in 1970s or whatever, and checking out books at the library.
Yes.
I don't think they had any books about demonic hauntings back then. Even the saints books took forever to read through and find anything, except Padre Pio had something, and I remember. But that's a very confusing thing when you have such a difficult, and that's like another show in itself, discerning. But in a way, you're getting some of it tonight, right? Yeah, we could do a show on near-death experiences in itself. I agree
we really
with that.
Could.
But the so these
we need to talk about the dark side too.
Okay.
After you're finished, telling about. There's so many wonderful stories. Zulma just shared one. I think Joseph just shared another one. He had one that was rather curious, and he was kind of disturbed by it. And I don't think he should be, because he wasn't sure what to make of it.
Yeah.
He had a dream that his father was wearing dirty rags and came to him and let him know that everything was all right, and hugged him and kissed him and went away. And he wasn't sure what to make of that.
Was he rich in life? I guess I would ask that first.
Yes, and that's something that, dreams can both be a comfort and they can be a puzzle.
Yeah.
And what we always tell people, when you have had a dream or you have had a vision of something in your mind that is making you ask questions, that is making you not sure about what you should believe or what you should think, we always say, you know what? Go spend some time with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, because I'll tell you what, you sit there for an hour, you'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. Until then, it's always good to trust that whatever is troubling you, it doesn't matter, if your car's been stolen, if your coffee pot exploded, if you had a nightmare, God wants you closer to Him. So, take it as a beautiful gift and say, okay, God, obviously you want me to lean on you, to trust you, and to basically just give everything to you more. End of story.
I'll give you two final things, and we'll move on to that right away. We have enough time, looks like. One of them I'll share with everybody, this story. I don't know if I did before or not. But when my mom passed away, and she died of OCP after
that
basically,
was really sad, wasn't it?
In an oxygen tent. It's like you get so low, and you don't really choke. It just goes down so low, and your body corresponds with the slow heart rate and the slow breathing, and you just kind of fade out of existence. It's not like you're suddenly choking and your body is shocked, like you're drowning. Not to bring that up again. But I did, about a week later on a Saturday, I was coming out of a dream, and I was just waking up, and I flashed into, as though I had switched the TV channel, into the scene where I was in this beautiful banquet room, like something kings would be in, and there was a large table, and there was all these ladies I recognized, some of them as saints, ants, not saints. When I get the ants, and mainly like the women, I remember their, hair, Estelle Getty hairdo, you remember the Golden Girls or whatever, and that kind of stuff. And I saw my mom's face. She looked like she was about 40, and the way she would almost get tears when she would, people just made her laugh. Some people were just so funny, and I remember her laughing on the phone. And it was her, not at 80 or, she was 40-something, and her face was smiling really big, like she just laughed. It's like nobody noticed me there. I was just looking. And so I recognized these relatives, some I didn't even meet, must have gone way back. Mom was smiling and happy and at a banquet table, and then I checked out. In other words, I'm right there. It's like, what the heck was that? I didn't really ask that question, but that's how realistic it was. So I got a glimpse of that for whatever reason, and I didn't know I was there. I wasn't a ghost to them or anything. On the other thing was the in the back of our book. Did we have that in the Haunting Self-Help Guidebook also, dear? Do you remember the Purgatory Ghost Prayer?
I don't believe we have that.
Okay, I think I put it on the swordsofstmichael.org, and you'll look and see it'll say Purgatory Spirits or something like that. And it's a prayer that I put in there, and I was recommended it to people in early 2000s. And it was working because some people thought, hey, it's a ghost. And they did it, and they wrote me, a bunch of people back then when MySpace was king. You remember that? Got some messages through MySpace and email. Yeah. When I used to check email, I don't check email anymore.
Yeah, you check email, boy, I know hell froze over. And I'm walking on it.
I know, I hate email. So I just use text or whatever, or something like that, or Facebook messages or whatever. But we had a lot of people reporting that it was working great, and it's always been a good prayer. And it's on the site. So. It's a 7-day novena, and each
7
one
days,
represents
that's
a
all.
different prayer.
It's not that big of a deal.
And it's a good way to help discern ghost or demon haunting, too, because if it ends, it's most likely not a demonic spirit, but there could be one there laying low, which means that if you have both type, you just freed the purgatory spirit, at least from that phase of existence. So it doesn't mean they went straight to heaven or anything in that case, so to speak. But I just thought I'd add that. Now let's go on to the other area of concern.
This is really great. We had a question, and we do get these questions quite often, last week from somebody that is very solid in their faith, and they're worried about their family members. And Ken, I'm going to ask you the question, then we can take off on the topic a little bit more. The question specifically is that my father recently passed away, and he died of severe illness. And now my brothers and sisters are having a variety of reactions to his death. My one sister believes that she saw orbs over his, not statuary, the headstone.
Was that with her eyeball
Can
or
I
camera?
finish, please? Let me finish.
Go ahead. All right.
Okay, so she believes that she saw orbs dancing. Then there was the other sister who thought that, wow, every time I think of Dad, I see a specific bird, and I know it's got to be Dad talking to me and trying to connect and communicate with me. And then another person was saying, well, this reminds me of your dad all the time. I'm sure that he's trying to communicate with me in some way. And he was so disturbed because he says, I don't really want to tell them that it sounds like superstition to me, but it's very bothersome, and I don't want my family to get in trouble. How do you advise that I handle this?
Does she buy into those, or you think she's kind of relaying what everybody else is thinking?
He's relaying what his family is going through. He does not buy into any of this, and he wants to know. He thinks it's superstitious.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
so he wants to know, how do you explain this to your family, and how do you handle it without totally offending them, because they're still grieving?
Well, I mean, are they Catholic? I guess that's a thing you can.
Yes, they all are, and that's why he's worried, is because they are practicing Catholics, and this is very superstitious.
Yeah, and then doing it right is kind of like walking on eggshells, because family members can be really sensitive and jerky, right? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I know. I mean, he can say it, but he might have to start off with a thing like, yeah, that's kind of a pagan belief. We don't come back as omens or other animals or lower life forms or anything like that. And it is common, going all the way back to Shakespeare, for as far as stage plays and productions, instead of just the writings of Plato and other people who aren't necessarily Christian, from the time that Shakespeare was writing about ghosts, and was it Macbeth, talking about the ghost of his father or something, that when he presents this in the style that it's the Catholic belief that if father was going to come back in some way, it would be coming here as himself in a dream, particularly is more common. Yes. And it would be a reminder that you need to step up to prayers because he's suffering and you need your prayers, and God allowed it because of the prayerful nature of the father before he passed.
Yes.
It was and that you need to pour your prayers out, offer more masses, rosaries, maybe do a rosary novena, and take it that way. But don't sit there and get curious like, oh, you sent me a rose today, or picked a thing out of the garden and dropped it on my window, because then the devils are trying to mess with you. And you can't let that cross the line, because the only thing the dead are going to say, not where I buried my $1 million, which is going to be like, I don't know how many odds, what are the odds of that? But and most things, then he signs of that. If you get a reminder, like when Farrah passes by an ambulance and she blesses herself and says a quick prayer, everybody should do that kind of thing, and they get in a habit.
It used to be that all Catholics, if you saw a church, you saw an ambulance, boy, you immediately crossed yourself and, kissed your cross. And it's like, Jesus, watch over them. You never know when somebody's going to die. And their prayer might be the only prayer that actually helps them.
Yeah, and what you're supposed to do in that case, like when you see something that reminds you of your deceased loved one, is you should say some prayers like, Our Father, Hail Mary, and Glory be immediately. But you shouldn't let curiosity draw you in, because that's when it gets like King Saul. He was curious what Samuel would say in life. I mean, curiosity kills the cat, doesn't it? It gets hairy, it gets dangerous when they cross that line. That's what we always revert to, is that the only message they could probably tell me is like with Padre Pio, a fellow monk, and they're in the same kind of a thing. They're Franciscan, and that's an order where they all became brothers, so it's a family member, more or less, from the past that he joined into this Franciscan as a friar. And he's basically telling him later on, could you please pray for me, Brother Pio?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that a little bit, that they're always, that's mainly what they're going to say. Unless there's a rare case where they're going to say, don't go, you will die. But usually your angel will do that. They want to have a dead relative. That's not, and even appearing as a dead relative, will that make them feel better? Like, I don't know. That's another thing altogether. If like you get a warning, an omen or something, and it comes true. But usually, like the old story about the lady who kept her kid home, she had this bad feeling. She didn't let the kid go to school, and there was a tornado that threw a piece of glass out to cut his desk in half. That's mother's intuition done through the Holy Spirit, guardian angel of mothers, guardian angel of the household and family, or whatever. So I mean, there's always a proper kind of order for that kind of thing. It's easier said than done, isn't it?
Very true.
You gotta go talk to the family.
I'd like to go into the humanistic psychological aspect of this, because that was my minor in Catholic college. When we look at an incident of a family turning to, and Athena said, signs and omens, so did Cheryl. When we look at families, they're not so much looking for orbs. They're not so much looking for seeing his favorite bird or smelling his pipe cigar. They're basically saying, I don't want to lose the connection I had with my father or whoever it was that passed. They want that connection so bad, and they can't stand the thought that physically it's not there anymore. Because the physical death of our bodies reminds all of us that we're only here temporarily. The soul understands that we will always be connected, especially if we have a relationship with Christ, with God, in our grace and our faith and our prayer practices. But our minds fight this so hard that we look for those things that tie us, such as, oh, I smell Dad's perfume or Mom's perfume. She must be around me. Oh, I'm seeing Dad's favorite bluebird out the window. He must be thinking of me. Or something as simple as a dust in a camera when you took a picture. Oh, those look like the orbs that were flying over my father's, his gravestone when we buried him. That must be Dad. And it's our desire as humans, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm saying it is a natural, normative desire. Where it gets dangerous is when we realize that our time of grieving has led us into, shall we say, a period of non-reality, a period of superstition, a period of wishful thinking. And this is not to accuse anybody of being mentally ill. This is not to accuse anybody practicing anything other than a desire to be connected to that loved one. That is what's driving this. Sadly, our world is full of dark demonics. That's why our websites are full of anti-demonics, as in prayers, as in actions you can take to protect yourself.
RX.
When these things, that's right, when these things watch you and they see that you are willing to what? I think I'm going to call that 1-900, and there's 99 cents a minute psychic that can tell me if Dad's okay. When we give in to those impulses, that's exactly, Cheryl, and we become obsessed with, exactly, and it's irrational too, Athena, when we become obsessed with that connection that we had with that person and we go into occult means to try and keep that connection, that's where we fall into danger. That's where we invite oppressing spirits in. And we don't even realize it because we just want one more smell, one more minute of connection with that person we lost so much. And in a way, what that does, that stops the grieving process and allows your mind to believe that the person is directly connected to you when actually they've never stop being connected to you. But our minds can't think when we're that sad, and our minds can only think that I love this person, I want them, and I have to have them. So we cry and we scream and we rail against reality, and we allow ourselves to listen to other people that say, oh yeah, that's definitely your loved one trying to connect. Oh, I remember when they did that all the time. And all these wonderful memories are beautiful, but they are not necessarily signs and wonders, so to speak. It's beautiful to remember our loved ones. I'm still guilty of it. I have this little sign in the window that says joy. It's just a word, but it's beautiful. And it reminds me of a baby I'll never meet. Well, maybe not till I get to heaven, and a sister that's in heaven. And below it, I have 3 little shells from a time when I went and made a little handmade necklace for my daughter. And below it, I have this adorable little baby wrapped with 2 wings that are swans that my friend got me to remind me. Now, do I see that and see, dead people? No. But that is my little tiny connection that I look at that and I think, guess what? This reality is only temporary. This reality is not all there is. And we're called to so much more. And as difficult as it is to let go of those people that we love, God's got our backs. And yes, Barb, I sell a lot of pardon crucifixes on all my rosaries, tenors, etc. We have to remember that as difficult as it is to grieve someone, it's more difficult to get oppressive spirits off you if you invite them in by constantly looking for a, shall we say, a preternatural or supernatural connection with your loved one.
That's true. Yes, again, with intention. And number 2, on the breaking curses thing.
Yes.
When they've been cursed, it's easier for them to do breaking curses prayers for 9 days and it's gone. But when they invited it themselves and they're getting the breaking curses prayer to break the attachment, which is what curses means, demonic attachment, it's not as so easy to go because you invited it in. It wasn't imposed on you. Like someone breaking in your house, you can kick them out, whatever. Sometimes like a squirrel with a broom. But that was very well said. And it makes me wonder when, sometime in the spring, can we expect to see you giving some video blogs at some point? The Fair Rose, Art of the Deels, your thoughts for today, prayer garden or whatever. I think people would like that. And I've already had people asking about, hey, when is Farrah going to start doing some of her own?
When God tells me it's time. Because there are so many hurting people. And we deal with so many cases that whether you've lost a child due to natural or unnatural causes, infanticide, or you lose a parent or you lose a sibling, there's a piece of your heart that's gone. And when we learn to grieve and allow ourselves to understand that no matter how much time goes by, you're still going to miss that person. And it's okay to still be a little sad when you think of that person. But to make that event the focus of your life deprives everyone of the beautiful gift that you are to those people that God sends to you every single day. We're not supposed to hide our gifts under a bushel. And when God wants me to take the bushel off my lamp, I promise you guys are going to be the first to hear about it. Okay?
Priorities too.
Yes, I do have a lot of priorities with home, with education. We're still homeschooling teens, kids. So, you know, as we free up time and as we get, the veils and the rosaries stocked and everything on a regular basis, and we make more time, I'll be doing some interesting blogs for you, because there has not been a time in my entire life that I haven't been exposed to evil, witchcraft, voodoo, Satanists, all kinds of horrors that I can share with you. That this life isn't easy. This life is full of these fantastic crosses that we can help other people carry, and that we can carry ourselves with joy, so people don't have to see us limping. We can smile and get all. We're just supposed to be finishers. We have to remember, though, no matter how many temptations and how many things get us just horribly down, including our children, including our family and people that we think are our family, the battle's already been won. And this is especially true for those times when we think that we see a loved one. Whether this encounter is a dream, or whether it's out of the corner of your eye, if the fruit is joy and happiness and a desire to seek God, it's from God.
Yeah.
We have to remember the fruits of that field. We really do.
Amen.
So on that note, kids, I think that it's time to tell you good night, sweeties. We really, really, really love you all, and we thank you so much for your support, your energy, your input. Thank you, everybody. I can't even name you all. Cheryl, Tony B, or is it Tony C?
Tony B.
We got Tony B, Tony C, Zilla, Cheryl. Yeah. We got so many great questions tonight.
People that come in there. Some I don't recognize because I don't.
I know. We cannot stop telling you the battle's already been won, and don't stop fighting the good fight. And tune in to us every Sunday night, and we're going to try and help you win the battle and win it right. Okay? Lots of prayer, lots of love, peace, blessings from your Franciscan brothers and sisters, Ken and Farah. The Real Deals, we are here. Subscribe, hit the little ding-dong bell, and you'll get a notice when we come on. Share our post, catch us on Facebook, Twitter, wherever, but mostly here. Thanks, guys. Good night, Cheryl. Good night, Barb. Good night, Emma, Tony, Ron, Pina, Ree, Jennifer. Good night, Peanut, Arturo, Rui, and Andre.
Same time, same channel.
Barb.
Next time, we'll see you here.
Yes.
What topic? I don't know, but we'll schedule it, so we'll see you then, and that's all that counts, right?
Adios,
Thanks
amigos
for
y
attending tonight,
amigas.
everybody. We'll see you again. God bless. Have a
Good
great
night.
week.
The Real Deals TV show, copyright 2018, a Swords of St. Michael production. Any unauthorized duplication or rebroadcast or retransmission of this broadcast without the express written permission of the Swords of the Saint Network or that of Kenneth and Farrow's Deal is strictly prohibited.